Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, we will be talking about a very active pattern. There's a ton of stuff that goes under the umbrella of saying something is active in the weather community at this time of the year. There will be, in this case, in this pattern, lots of storms just across the United States. There will be a ton of tropical influence across the southern U.S., potentially, obviously, hurricanes themselves, potentially very concerning situations unfolding at times. Again, it's far out, so no need to panic, but there is a time to prepare and take action. Obviously, the patterns are changing in terms of the air masses. We are heading towards shorter days. The sun is getting further and further away from the northern hemisphere, so it's cooling off, and I will be talking about that as there is a potential for a rather potent cool off, according to some models, in the long range, not in the medium or short range. Okay, before we get into this, if you guys are new to this channel, this is your fourth or fifth video, or you're just liking the channel, right? Consider subscribing, consider liking the video. Don't do it just because I told you so. Obviously, make sure you actually enjoy this. And if you have any comments, concerns, questions, what it might not be, or whatever it may be, leave it down below. I try answering as many as I can. So yeah, let's get into this. So first off, let's take a look at the European model. And I just want to start off right off the bat. We do have a bit of activity on the radar right now, mainly some thunderstorms across the mid-Atlantic area, or sorry, the Ohio Valley and the Indiana area and into portions of Kentucky, northern Kentucky, and the southeast. There is going to be an increase, however, in this activity, making it not impressive to very impressive. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Notice that the quiet activity doesn't last for long. We quickly go into a very robust time period of shower storms, and we start that off by erupting storms across the Dakotas. And this is as early as, well, tomorrow, late in the morning. This is really at around 6 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, really tomorrow in the next 12 hours. The Dakotas, South Dakota. You can see the European shows a lot of storms, clusters across the Dakotas, Minnesota, into Wisconsin. Quite a few of these systems, obviously, will have severe weather. So large hail, damaging winds, and whatnot is definitely something to be watchful for. Really, the Storm Prediction Center did not issue more than a marginal risk or a slight risk for tomorrow. So again, it's not a outbreak of severe weather, but definitely kind of the side effect of this, more or less. Not the main concern. The main concern is a lot of these areas in certain pockets south of Minneapolis, for example, saw 4-5 inches of rain in a single event, and this will continue for the next really few weeks, so that could cause some flooding, some ponding, and some hydraulic issues. Regarding the temperatures, it will be warm, at least for the next 5 to 10 days. There will be a few pockets of cool air, especially if it rains. Obviously, you have some cloud cover, right? There may be some unexpected cool air just from that. But generally, a warmer air mass and a warmer pattern for now across much of the U.S. There will be a few pockets of chillier air. But notice that there is a lot of, obviously, rain predicted by the European. I do want to say that this is just one model. And really, even the models, I think it was interesting reading the National Weather Service forecast discussion for Chicago, and they were talking about how the models are really useless at this time, and they use the phrase that it's the forecast is about as clear as mud, right? Obviously implying that it's uncertain. They don't really know. I mean, they do know, but they're just limited in what they can use. The models are proving rather useless, so they're using observational trends to figure out what may or may not happen. Again, obviously, a lot of models show activity, but for days like today, this looks like nothing. But it's way lit up. This radar has a lot of showers and storms going on across many locations, and the models don't show that. So again, will that mean that it's more active when it shows activity? No. One could argue because of its inaccuracy, it may be overdone here, or the different location of this, further to the north, south. So just in general, especially, I was watching also my local news today, and they were just talking about strutting themselves with such confidence, talking about tomorrow's forecast that, the rain will come here, it will go there. Okay, maybe they would be right. They have a chance of that, but that's just one scenario. And the National Weather Service goes over many of those scenarios in their forecast discussion. And when you turn on the local news and you watch it, you realize why they have a reputation for being inaccurate. Not necessarily because they're inaccurate; they just don't show the possibility for uncertainty. And I know that there are some better stations that do. But again, if you live across Chicago, for example, today, certain offices keep it, weather stations keep it very dry, no chance. But if you're to actually look at the environment, it's very suitable for some strong to powerful isolated storms. In some cases, maybe even scattered storms. So even if the forecast, what I'm trying to say, says clear skies, nothing to worry about. Well, maybe not clear skies, but really the isolated threat should hold off till the late evening. Just be prepared for change. A lot of this stuff is very hard to predict, more unpredictable than what we've been seeing in the summer or especially winter. So notice showers, storms right across much of the U.S., activity across the north. Again, look at that refiring across very, very similar locations. And obviously at this point, notice, I mean, look, just derechos, lines of storms, obviously maybe not a derecho, but a derecho looking like systems, and across the northeast, more rain, across southern Canada, scattered showers. And at this point, obviously, what starts catching the eye is, well, twin hurricanes, one across the Pacific, one across the Atlantic. And at this point, maybe there wouldn't be hurricanes yet, but tropical systems, right? And notice that this is by Sunday, Monday. The European model definitely did speed up the impact of this storm across the United States. It brings it into the Gulf of Mexico, into Louisiana and Texas area. Definitely a large storm, not tropical storm Henri, which was about the size of this thing right here in terms of its strongest wind field. Notice this one hitting the Baja Peninsula. Now, what's kind of concerning is that look how quickly that intensifies. It just blows up in intensity right before landfall. Some models keep it much stronger, and look what it hits. According to this model, again, it's very far out. It hits again the Lake St. Charles area, which, if you recall, that's exactly where they got hammered by Laura, which was, I think, a Category 4 when it was making landfall, maybe 3. I think it was 4. So, this could still be a bit off, and we'll see where this could go. This could still equally hit San Antonio, maybe Houston, in Texas. This could also go maybe towards New Orleans, more or less. So there's still a lot of impacts that there's still a lot of uncertainty with this, and obviously a lot of impacts with that. If it, hits Lake Charles versus Lake New Orleans. New Orleans, they have giant, they did have giant problems with their levees. Hopefully now they'd be able to hold up against, the hurricanes and storms. In 2005, it didn't. Obviously, Katrina was an extraordinary storm, but it's just based on even the same strength, different location. It's a huge impact difference. Okay, notice that as this makes landfall, obviously it's strong. I do want to mention that we have a lot of stuff going on across the north. A very, very large low pressure, tight circulation, strong winds across southern Canada, and a powerful cold front dragging that, and that kind of sweeps the storm from not going too far inland and starts taking that eastward track. But look, unlike Tropical Storm Henri or Hurricane Henri, it does not weaken right away. I mean, through Louisiana, Arkansas, and all the way into Tennessee, it keeps strong. It's strong. It's a strong system, and it finally does start, really almost starts stalling out, which would be definitely a concern across those areas, especially areas in Tennessee that have seen inordinate amounts of rain. And look what happens with this storm across the Pacific. It just rides right into the Southwest, and it doesn't die. It brings potentially flooding, maybe concerning rains to Southern California. They do need the rain, but just not that amount. And I'll show you how much the European shows for that. Again, this is just one of many models one of many models that agrees on a influence from the tropics into the southwest. Same thing here, right? At this point, it's looking more and more likely there will be a hurricane, unfortunately. But even if there weren't, the tropics have massive impact. Some just show extra precip here from the tropics. The European actually landfalls a tropical storm across the southwest. It probably won't be a tropical storm by the time landfall occurs, but yeah, lots of rain, lots of precip, and look, this one just continues to bring rain across Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia. Again, that's assuming a certain scenario. Look what happens right there across the west, Montana, Wyoming. We start seeing a storm system spawn, a very impressive one. Using the moisture from that hurricane, we see a very large area of rain, almost a fall-like storm. And in terms of total accumulated rainfall, right, so from all these events, all those storms earlier across the Midwest, the plains, and in that second one, very, very heavier amounts of rain. 5, 6, 7 inches, not out of the question. North Dakota, 1 to 3 inches. There will be pockets of definitely, over 6 inches. It's just showing you where it's favoring the heaviest of the rain. Notice this model is not showing much for Oklahoma or Texas, but again, some models do. But, if you were to assume this is the ultimate truth, it wouldn't be 100% dry, but it's saying that it's most likely going to be drier. Same thing like here. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about. 6, 7 inches. That seems like a good thing. And it would be a good thing to a sense, but negatives of this would outweigh this. I mean, the wildfires that have been going on that kind of exposed the land in many locations, and that would cause landslides. And even if it wasn't for forest fires, that much rain across such hilly terrain, landslides, flash floods, and whatnot would not be good. And yeah, it definitely could be a lot of rain from that. Notice what this one does across Louisiana. I mean, just a swath of 9, 10, 8, across especially the same areas that had that flood in Tennessee. 6, 7, 8 inches. That is not good, and hopefully we don't see that. But it's certainly a possibility, which yeah, hopefully does not actually happen. But unfortunately, not trying to make your day any worse, but let's take a look at the Canadian model. A very good model, and look what it shows. Doesn't show as much precip across the southwest. It does show some, mainly from the, again, impacts from the tropics and whatnot. Again, a wet pattern across Minnesota, Wisconsin from from those earlier storms, and really just a continued pattern all throughout the next 240 hours, which it goes out to. But look across the south. It really impacts very similar locations with, again, inordinate amounts of rain, 20 to 16, 18, not good. But then notice Arkansas, 8, even further inland to Tennessee, 5, 6, 7 inches of rain. And then look, Indiana, 9, 10, and yeah, just a lot of rain. It does start weakening over here, but still, that's while it's a large area of precipitation. And again, this would have extremely powerful winds, especially if it were to form like what the GFS shows, which is a very powerful storm. I already said this in my previous video, and I think I've already said this today. This storm will be much larger than Henri. And you may be wondering, okay, well, larger doesn't mean stronger or worse. And in terms of hurricanes, not always, but there is one thing usually that is very concerning with large storms, especially if it's a powerful one, which, again, this one most likely will be as well in terms of winds. That is storm surge, especially across Louisiana, where New Orleans is pretty much at, or even some studies now are showing some reports that it's below sea level at this point. That's the biggest concern. This is not this is not a small system. To give you perspective, Henri, when it was making landfall, that's already too big. It was really small, or at least the tropical storm force winds. It was about maybe that side, and of course the rain was a bit bigger. But this storm, the tropical storm force winds, maybe not according to the Canadian, but the GFS or European, it is much bigger, potentially 3 to 4, maybe even 5 times the size of that. And yes, it does keep it a bit weaker. Again, it intensifies it right before landfall, hitting very similar locations as Hurricane Laura did last time. Again, this could pivot further towards the east, especially if we have this beast and its cold front occur a bit earlier, and that does kind of keep it from going to the north and drags it right into New Orleans or areas that are even more vulnerable. Notice that this does, again, obviously take its sweet old time across the South and Mid-Atlantic, the kind of the southern Mid-Atlantic, if you want to call it that, the Mid-Atlantic, just really the South. And notice North Dakota, South Dakota, and into portions of the plains, constantly seeing threats from other systems that are, again, more land-based. And those showers and storms will be occurring across areas that have seen a ton of rain, and that is really not going to be good either. Again, this only goes out to 240 hours. Let's take a look at the precipitation. I think I already showed you it. Yeah, you could see some areas are going to be seeing very heavy rains. And, if you were to see 5-6 inches on top of 5-6 inches that have already fallen across Minnesota, that's not good. And same story goes in Tennessee, where they saw 19 inches. Maybe they won't see 19 with this system, but it doesn't look good with any additional rain, and that could bring quite a bit. I do want to mention, look what the Canadian shows at the end. As soon as that one dissipates, we see another storm. Yeah, I mean, that's the time of the year that this occurs. Just, this year and last year have been extremely active, which isn't a good thing. I want to quickly go to a different website just to show you the GFS. This one is one that goes up very far, and it shows that cool off. So stay tuned to that if you want to hear about that. Notice today, tomorrow, really Friday, Thursday, Saturday, lots of storm potential. Again, I'm not going to focus on the details because I'm sorry, it's just impossible. A lot of it is based on, again, as the National Weather Service said, it's observational trends, not really what the models show. Generally, if you really want me to outline this and draw it out, if you live across this giant area here, expect a day-to-day thunderstorm chance. That doesn't mean you will get a day-to-day one, but it's very hard to break that one time and exactly, what day you will see the heaviest rain, whether it will be a severe or more of a threat or just a heavy rain threat. Impossible to tell, unfortunately, but you can see the models are indicating lots of rain, and again, that system does intensify and it does develop. The GFS makes that system slower, so this system meanders more towards the west as it makes impacts. And you can see right there, it pushes towards Texas, Oklahoma, right? Initially does take a curve, but then pushes back out, and that's again, you can see it almost gets clipped by that cold front from that system, but it doesn't. Look how strong this one is. It goes to 939 millibars of low pressure. Very, very strong. Obviously, that is hopefully an exaggeration. That would be a Category 5. And again, that is a very, very strong, powerful system. Lots of storm surge potential. Storm surge of that size from a storm this big would be very bad. And, this isn't a record-breaking system, but it's not a small tropical. It's not Henri, which was a much smaller system. It could be a powerful beast. And again, it takes a sweet old time, dropping tons of rain, moisture, tropics influenced, rain. And look at the north towards the North Dakotas. Again, North Dakota, the Dakotas, Minnesota, southern Canada. Lots of rain, repeated rainfall, bouts of it. Again, these tropical systems do help, and you can see that system right there gets a lot of energy and a lot of rain from that, sweeps it finally away, but more rain across further to Canada. And the interesting thing is here, look at all this cold air that the GFS shows after this. Look at that. So we have a little thunderstorm, a cold front, and boom, do you see that? Yep, that's snow. That's 32 degrees, getting, relatively close to the U.S. And, of course, there is more tropics at this point occurring. There's some snow across British Columbia, which, again, is becoming more and more expansive at this time of the year. And look at that high pressure. Sorry about that, indicating more and more cool air at this time. And, yes, that would be a pretty big cool-off. It's very far out, but the GFS is not the only model from its ensembles that shows that precipitation or that cool down. And again, this obviously would bring relatively chilly air, and of course some frosts for maybe the extreme northern UP or into much of the Northeast. Look at that, 45, 40s into New York, Pennsylvania. Could you imagine that? September 10th. I know a lot of folks have been seeing hundreds across Pennsylvania. Can you imagine 40s, upper 40s on September 10th? It's not unheard of to see 40s in September, but from what we've been seeing, it's definitely going to be a nice cool off if this does come to fruition. I do want to say that if you were to take a look at the ensembles at this time, again, they do hint at that. So maybe not in the extreme far out, last few hours, but look right there, that cool air, especially during the daytime, some cool offs. And right now, just to again mention, show you, we are in a very, very warm pattern that is, again, predominantly hot, I would say. And in the northwest, cooling off, which is good. They need it the most. And then, again, depending on how this tropical moisture works, bringing cloud cover, lots of rain, then that's why the days are cooler, but the nights stay a bit warmer, which is so interesting how we see such a contrast. It's been occurring the last few years at a more and more significant basis. Then the days aren't as warm from average as the nights are, which really is cool, and it's interesting to see what impacts that may have, and what's that from. It's definitely interesting, and something I've noticed just from looking for the past really year and a half at the weather models, and I'm sure many of you have noticed that as well. That the nights, well, maybe not noticed in terms of feeling, but just look at this. I mean, one day during the day, cool, and across the same locations, it's above average during the night. So definitely interesting. Regardless of what happens with that night, day, whatever, we have a lot of, again, activity, and I could go in more in detail about what's to come in the next 84 hours, and I think I will, just briefly, just to show you that, again, there's activity even in the next 84 hours, but obviously the biggest threats are heavy rain across the north, constant activity, lots of tropical moisture influence, regardless of what happens, how strong that storm is. Of course, it's becoming more and more likely, however, that we do have a strong, potentially a major hurricane hitting the U.S. in the next week. Really in the next week, by next Monday. So, not a lot of time if it were to occur to prepare. That's why I'm encouraging everyone to, if you're in this, Louisiana, southern Alabama, Mississippi, maybe even Alabama and Texas, to prepare for a nasty system. Even if it's a Category 1 or 2, prepare. It's a Category 5, you better prepare. And that's with a capitalized, all caps, better. So notice that in the next 84 hours, right, this is into tomorrow, we do have some storms across Indiana, Illinois, and across, of course, the North Dakota area. South Dakota. They do become rather expansive tomorrow during the day, and you can see some of that will be severe as it sags to the south again. More rain for Illinois, Iowa, even where it just finished off into Thursday. On Friday, it refires more into Wisconsin, Minnesota, into Pennsylvania, the Northeast now, southeastern Canada, and more storms on Sunday across very similar areas. And again, just through the next 84 hours, we see many areas potentially pick up doses of very heavy rain. Obviously, some pockets, according to this model, and does a good job of showing this, that they could be seeing over 6, 7, 8 inches in the next few days if you get 3 to 4 torrential downpours, meaning 3 to 4 kind of 30-minute storms. You could get easily 5, 6 inches in that time. Yesterday, I think my area picked up almost 2 inches in a matter of around 1 hour. So, yeah, and that was really just from like one elongated thunderstorm. All right, so yeah, guys, stay safe. Don't get, if you see flooded roadway, turn around, don't drown. And obviously, if you live across the south, prepare for what may be a very, very heavy rainmaker, a strong wind producer. Not trying to scare you, just preparing an action is needed at this point in time. I've been looking at these weather models, and it's been just growing and growing in confidence. And yesterday, the European was reluctant to show it, and now it joined all 3 models showing a hurricane, which, again, and I say hurricane based off just the millibars and how that system occurs. So I'm rather confident in this tropical disturbance hitting summer in the Gulf Coast next week, Monday or Tuesday. Regarding, the heat, obviously stay cool, stay hydrated. It's been very bad, but, as you saw, cool down and maybe on its way. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya.